Look at him. Oh, I see the perversion. The Satanism. I see it, brother. You're in the middle of it, aren't you?
Turn that thing off.
You don't tell me what to do, brother. You done told me I could engage. Too late now, brother. Too late. You done said I can engage. You said I can shake your hand. You said I can come up to you.
I said don't turn
Maybe you need to figure it out, you foul demon. I bind that demonic power from your life in the name of Jesus of Nazareth. I bind it unless you bind the strong
Hey,
man.
I'm Trey Kay, and you're listening to Us and Them, the show that tells the story of America's culture wars.
I bind the spirit of perversion from your life in the... Yeah, there it was.
This is a recent Facebook video that shows a scene outside the Women's Health Center in Charleston, West Virginia. My sister Stacy sent me the video. She and my mom volunteer here.
And there's a stricter judgment for a man of God.
Chris McComas is the man yelling. His words are aimed at a man I know, Episcopal priest Jim Lewis. Lewis is a volunteer escort who has made it his life's mission to protect women who come to this clinic. Chris McComas has made it his life's mission to shut this clinic down because abortions are performed here.
Jesus Christ of Nazareth! That's right, I bind those demons from your life!
When I watch this video of what's happening at a clinic in my hometown, I think this couldn't be any more us and them. Ever since the United States Supreme Court decision, Roe v. Wade, legalized abortion in 1973, we have continued to argue over whether or not a woman should have a right to end a pregnancy and when life begins. Many say the debate has created extremists on both sides.
I rebuke it from your life in the name that's above every name.
In the 4 years since we started Us and Them, we haven't focused on the abortion debate. But this scene outside the clinic convinced me it was time. Abortion clearly divides people. But this also seems to be a watershed moment. Abortion may be legal, but women face more and more limitations. Clinics have closed. States are restricting abortion. In fact, this year there have been a dozen abortion bans passed. They all face legal challenges. And the United States Supreme Court is scheduled to hear a case that could change everything. In the midst of all of this, how often do we talk across the divide when it comes to abortion? Are we willing to hear each other? And can we really understand another perspective? I set out to see who would talk with me, or with someone they disagreed with, about abortion. My first stop was the Women's Health Center in Charleston, West Virginia. I wanted to see how people there talk with each other about abortion. When I get there, I stand in a vacant lot just across the street from the clinic's fenced-in parking area. And I take a moment to observe. On the sidewalk in front of the clinic entrance, there are small groups of people. At the edge of a short driveway, the volunteers stand in bright pink aprons that define their role. It says Escort Volunteer across their chest, and they are gravely solemn. Even though it's a sunny day, they hold large, colorful umbrellas to shield patients from their cars to the doors of the clinic. And Chris McComas is here, as he is at least twice a week, pretty much every week. He lives about a half hour away, and he's often here with fellow protesters. A Charleston city ordinance makes sure that protesters and volunteer escorts stay 8 feet away from each other. If they want to come closer, they need to ask. McComas uses some of the techniques of national abortion protesters. He moves and talks nonstop, endlessly walking a circular path in front of the volunteers.
Of the salvation of the Lord, stand and see.
There's Christian music playing uninterrupted from a speaker he brings to the clinic, and there are some graphic photos of abortions.
Praise the name of Jesus.
McComas is balding, in his 50s. He's white and holds a cell phone about 6 inches from his face, filming at all times, so he can live stream his actions to Facebook.
How you doing, brother? It's a great day to be alive.
McComas notices me standing across the street, and he walks over. I admit I was a little flustered. I didn't expect that. But I wasn't sure how to introduce myself. You see, my legal name is John, so that's what I used.
What's your name, brother? John? Is it okay if I come up and shake your hand, John? Sure. I can? Oh, good. I'm Chris McComas. It's a pleasure to meet you, sir. So what do you think, brother? Did you come to stand with us today?
My answer is hard to hear on the recording. I say, I just came to stand.
You just came to stand? How do you feel about them murdering children here at 510 West Washington Street?
I'd rather not talk to them.
So you don't have an opinion on that, sir? I don't. Okay. I see.
I'm not sure what to do. Chris McComas catches me off guard. He's asking me questions.
Have you given your heart to Jesus, John? Are you serving the Lord with all your heart, soul, and strength? Is Jesus everything to you, sir?
And he wants me to take a stand and declare my position on abortion. I tell him I work for West Virginia Public Broadcasting and try to give him my business card because I want to set up a time to interview him. But he seems suspicious of me. It doesn't help that I'm looking at my cell phone during much of our interaction. The thing is, I'm getting texts from my sister Stacy and other people inside the clinic, including my mom. They're telling me not to talk with him. And as I'm getting texts, McComas is also getting pinged on his phone. It's a whistle sound.
Sorry, I'm getting rebuked.
When he says he's getting rebuked, I think it's a little text nudge from, I'm not completely sure, but it's someone who's watching him interact with me on the live stream, along with a whole audience of his supporters. So he's got people in his ear and I've got people in mine. The situation is tense between us.
What's your agenda?
I'd just like to talk to you later.
Is it about Jesus? Sure, we can talk. You're just saying that because you want to talk to me later. Oh, boy, what's going on? Why don't you let me know what's going on here, brother? Why are you here? Why are you here?
I'm here just to
Observe. But you don't want to give a stance on, you don't think it's murdered what they're doing over here. Murder their child. I can't take it no more, brother. I can't take it no more. They're not going to do it. And I'm not going to take drag queens either out teaching little kids. I won't take that.
We get nowhere. I stay a little longer and then leave. I call my editor and I tell her what happened. And she encourages me to try again. And I do, the very next day. I walk up to McComas and try to talk with him. But it backfires. As usual, he videotapes and live streams the encounter. That's what you're hearing now.
I wish I had more drinks.
My voice is a little hard to hear. I tell him that I feel bad that we got off to a bad start.
I feel bad that we got off to a bad start yesterday.
He feels bad that we got off to a bad start. He pretty much... Is he going to follow me around? Please don't engage me, sir. In front, 100 foot of the door.
McComas tells me he feels I deceived him and the small number of protesters at the clinic the previous day. That's when he and his live stream supporters made the connection between me and my sister Stacy, who, as I mentioned earlier, volunteers as a patient escort at the clinic.
We know that you're Stacy's brother. So, no, it's his brother. Why would you want to even discuss anything with us when you know how she treats us and the relationship that we have? It's not good. Why do you want to confront us?
I tell him I'm a journalist and that I want to hear more about his beliefs, but he's not having it.
I have no comment, sir. I've had a lot of magazines, websites, HBO, Vice, and all, Jezebel, and everybody else come through here, and we have no comment, sir. But thanks for coming by and apologize. I just got rebuked. We'd rather we decline. Yeah, we decline comments, sir. We have no comment. Is no means no? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay.
I didn't really receive you. My name is Trey.
At this point, he tells me to go away. So I do. I shrug my shoulders and walk away. My aim was to have a civil conversation, but I could see that this was not the place to do it. As I walk off, McComas continues to film and record himself talking about me with his live stream audience and with a fellow protester.
Absolutely not. I'm not going to deal with that spirit. He shaves his legs, and I'm not going to get into that. I don't know why he's got a... Look at here. His car is from New York. He's got New York plates for some reason. Is that a rental car? Are these people renting cars come over here like they're scared to death you're going to find out who they are and where they live? I mean, I don't really care where he lives, you know. I just don't want to talk to him. I'm just here to bind the spirit of murder, and it's Stacey K's brother.
Yeah,
why
she
would...
hates us. I mean, why would he want to talk to us? Are these your papers?
Just great. One of those, we're here to do this, we're not here to do that. Write that down. Father, we bless your name today, Lord. Glory to God. Thank you, Jesus.
I'm feeling like I failed. I've interviewed so many people, but Chris McComas wouldn't talk with me. He asked me right away to declare a side, but I didn't. I was there as a journalist, on the job for us and them. Chris McComas is right. I don't stand with him. But I do want to hear him and other people who hold different views and beliefs. But my opinion on abortion is mixed. I support a woman's right to choose, but I'm not thrilled about the idea of abortion. It would not be an easy decision for me to make. I mean, it's never an easy decision. The only time I've been confronted with it, I was dating a woman, now my ex-wife, and she became pregnant. We chose to have the baby, and today I have an incredible son who's just about to graduate from college. I don't think about abortion in a religious way, though I do have a strong faith practice, and I did have early experiences with fundamentalist Christianity. When I was a kid growing up in West Virginia, I thought abortion was wrong. But by the time I got to high school, I changed my mind. I had friends who got pregnant and who weren't ready to become parents. I didn't think they should have to face the stigma of bringing a child to term and giving it up for adoption, or raising their child unprepared. I can easily see legitimate arguments against my position, but I've been a supporter of legal abortion ever since. I'm being as transparent as I can be. My perspective has changed over time, and I've seen old friends from high school, fervently pro-choice, change their minds in the opposite direction. Now they're pro-life. As I started reporting this story, the two women on my team said, "You've got to talk to some women." And of course, that was my plan. But the comment reminded me that men and women have very different perspectives on abortion. For a woman, it's incredibly personal.
I am Dr. Shaniqua Smith, and currently I am organizing in my community by educating individuals.
I've known Shaniqua Smith for a few years. She moved to West Virginia from New York City nearly 20 years ago to create a better life for her family. She recently finished her PhD in human and community development. I knew she'd have some things to tell me. She had an abortion when she was 16.
I wasn't ready to be a mother, and unfortunately I was put in that situation. And being put in that situation caused me to be more careful going forward. And if I was forced to have that baby, how can I ever pull myself out of poverty situation that I was in? When I had my children, I had my first child at 26, which I was more mature. I was able to, be mature myself and help put myself in a better situation to raise my child.
When you say that you could not pull yourself out of the poverty situation that you were in, tell me what that was like.
Well, I mean, at that time, I lived in Harlem, and this is pre 9/11, because if you go to Harlem now, there's this beautiful place. But pre 9/11, it was a place where it was in the crack era. And, I'm the oldest of 6 children and living under those conditions that we all have read about. Most people have read about and heard about. We had unstable housing and, inadequate parent and not enough resources for us to be nurtured and guided to be healthy and focused individuals. And so not having that mentorship, not having that guidance, not having that support, and my mother couldn't give it to me because she didn't have it. It's generational.
Smith is a leader for her family and her community. Young men and women seek her out for advice. They talk with her about everything, about dating, sex, pregnancy. Smith advises young men and women to not get pregnant in the first place.
I have a lot of preventive conversations with my young ladies. I have taken girls to the clinic to get birth control. I'd rather do that than taking them to the abortion clinic. But most of the time I take them birth control or I give them condoms.
A couple of times, though, she has taken a young woman to the Women's Health Center in Charleston for an abortion. Smith understands firsthand what it means to lack the resources needed to raise a child.
I'm not the only young girl that found herself pregnant unintentionally and feel like I cannot have this baby, and I know the father cannot support this baby. I cannot support, my family can't support this baby, and feel they have to have an abortion. And we know birth control is not 100%.
Smith gets frustrated when those who oppose abortion use phrases like murder and baby killing. To her, those are fighting words.
So you worrying about that being a murder, but you're not worrying about creating more of the walking dead. Creating more of a population that are put in traumatized situation where there's no resources, there's no support to stop the behavior that these communities are constantly repeating that are systematically set. A lot of people that's protesting pro-life do not live under the conditions, do not face the discrimination, do not face the oppression that a lot of people that are put in those situations have to have abortion. All these people that's pro-life, it would be helpful if they fight against the oppressions of the system, to make different programs, to make different opportunities so young women can lessen the chances of them being at the abortion clinic.
People who support legal abortion say access is key. Since the 1973 Roe v. Wade decision, a push to limit access has become successful, even more so over the past decade. The Guttmacher Institute is a research and reproductive health advocacy group. It reports since 2011, states have approved nearly 500 restrictions on abortion. The new laws include things like limits on public funding, parental notification, and waiting periods. In some states, doctors are now required to have hospital privileges to perform abortions. And just this year, a dozen states have passed abortion bans. None of them are in effect yet. The National Right to Life Committee is the nation's oldest pro-life advocacy group. Its 2019 annual report acknowledges a campaign of aggressive legislative outreach at the heart of these new laws. Those restrictions are seen as the first step in triggering the Supreme Court to revisit Roe v. Wade. And the strategy seems to be working. The Supreme Court is expected to hear a case challenging a Louisiana law. It's the law I just mentioned that makes doctors have hospital privileges in order to perform an abortion. People against legal abortion are hopeful this could spell the end of Roe v. Wade. I should mention there are several states bucking this trend, trying to ensure continued access to legal abortion. Abortion rates are falling in the United States. The Guttmacher Institute reports that in 2017 there were fewer abortions in the U.S. than in any other year since abortion was legalized in 1973. There are also fewer clinics providing abortion services. Half a dozen states, including West Virginia, have just one clinic that provides abortions. In West Virginia, it's the Women's Health Center on Charleston's west side, where we started our story.
The west side of Charleston is the highest concentration of African Americans in the entire state of West Virginia. And it certainly has a high concentration of low income, below the poverty level, African-American people.
That's Reverend Matthew Watts. He's senior pastor at Grace Bible Church in Charleston and president and CEO of Hope Community Development Corporation, a nonprofit organization in Charleston. West Virginia's only abortion clinic relocated to Charleston's west side about 2 decades ago. But Watts says it speaks volumes about the racial inequalities in this country.
I believe that putting an abortion clinic in a highly populated black community sends a signal that we don't value these lives as much as we value other lives. So for me as an African American who is a Christian and who is a minister, anything that devalues black life causes great concern for me. And so that's why I stand very strongly from my pulpit to articulate my personal views and the views of this church, that we value life from the womb to the tomb, from the cradle to the grave. We got to fight every day for it. We got to fight every day for it. So those young women who do decide to bring their babies to term, we have an obligation to fight.
I wanted to hear what Reverend Watts had to say about abortion because he defines his worldview as a biblical Christian. Like many people in West Virginia, Watts's religious views inform his perspective on abortion.
I believe that the Bible is the Word of God to be the final authority for our faith and our practice. So I believe the Bible clearly suggests that life begins at conception. So I don't think there's any debate in my mind in terms of what the biblical text actually teaches. And if that's the case, then that life is to be protected if at all possible, to have an opportunity to reach its full potential. So that's where my belief system is coming from. Now, with that belief system, as a biblical Christian in a democratic republic, I also respect the rule of law. So I respect the fact that the 1973 Roe v. Wade decision, which basically legalized abortion as being a constitutional right that a person has, it is the law of the land. And so I respect the fact that that is the law. So what I'm saying is that as a Christian, I can live with abortion on demand being legal.
I'm struck by how Watts threads the needle between religious views that oppose abortion and his acceptance of the legal protections for abortion. I can relate. While some people's position on abortion is absolute, I think many people share Watts's more nuanced perspective. And as he sees it, abortion politics are a distraction from the urgent problems facing his community and the nation.
Abortion is not going to go away. Now, it might go away legally, but I assure you that there will still be abortions practiced, and we may prosecute the people, what have you. But this is really my point. My point is we've got to resolve this issue because the politicalization of the issue is keeping us from working on things that we need to be working on to move the country forward. So we're not working on addressing poverty together like we need to do. We're not working on improving the overall health, right? Like in West Virginia, we're one of the most unhealthy states in the country. We're not working on trying to improve our health outcomes, but we are spending a lot of time on this abortion issue.
Reverend Watts says his faith has helped him determine his views on abortion. And those beliefs assure him that as he counsels women, he doesn't need to have all the answers.
We need to go and work on something else and leave this matter to God and let God decide who's going to live and who's going to die, who's going to be born, who's not going to be born. And at the end of the day, that's where I can rest. I can rest and accept abortion on demand as being legal because I still believe that there's a sovereign, transcendent God that has the ultimate decision as to who lives and who dies. That doesn't excuse me from engaging in the struggle and doing what I think need to be done and I think that he would have me to do. But it relieves me of the burden of feeling like if I can't overturn this law, man, I've been a great failure and God's will is going to be thwarted.
Coming up, I speak with two women who have spent years on opposite sides of the abortion debate. They tell me how their experiences have shaped their views and their relationship.
I believe that we've got to be able to trust women as autonomous decision makers. And it's not up to us to judge what a woman's circumstances are for why she might need to terminate a pregnancy. It's not the government's role.
Originally got involved in this more of a civil rights issue and more of a feminist type issue, in that I believe that women shouldn't be compelled or feel compelled that they have to have an abortion in order to succeed in life. I believe that women can be equal to men or better than men even if we have children.
I'm Trey Kay, and you're listening to Us and Them from West Virginia Public Broadcasting and PRX. This show is supported in part by the West Virginia Humanities Council, the CRC Foundation, and the Daywood Foundation.
In difficult times, music gives us peace, brings us together, and helps heal us. It calms our nerves and brightens our days. That's why we're bringing you classic episodes of Mountain Stage on air and in our podcast. This is Larry Gross, host of Mountain Stage. Find something that's familiar or brand new and feel the power of live music on our website, mountainstage.org.
Hey, this is Trey Kay, and you're listening to Us and Them. We're talking about the abortion issue, a topic that divides so many of us. The idea for this story was sparked by a video of protests outside the Women's Health Center in Charleston, West Virginia.
Look at that foul demon on your mouth. That's a foul demonic.
It's the only clinic in the state providing abortion services.
In the name that's above every name, Jesus Christ of Nazareth.
In the video, protester Chris McComas directs his comments at my friend Jim Lewis. He's an Episcopal priest in Charleston.
I'm his number one yell-at guy. It's something that goes with the terrain. He is a man of strong beliefs, so am I. He has his way of doing it, and that is to scream and shout.
Lewis is 84 years old and a former Marine. He defends protesters' rights, even though he doesn't like being their target.
And I know that there is inside of me someone who could get pretty nasty right back at him. But that would poison my own soul. So I really put restraints on that, and I hope I can keep those restraints. It's important.
Lewis has been speaking out in support of legal abortion since the early 1970s. Even before Roe v. Wade, he helped women travel to New York, the only state where they could find safe abortions. And after abortion was legalized, Lewis provided space in his Charleston church to help organize West Virginia's first abortion clinic.
Believe me, that created conflict. I mean, conflict was already there. I didn't create it. Conflict is around all the issues before you ever raise them. But I became a face in this struggle.
Once, in those early days, Lewis gave a talk about Christian unity at a neighboring Catholic church. He even brought his own Episcopal choir to perform. As he spoke, a parishioner confronted him.
He came right down the aisle, grabbed hold of me, and my wife Judy was in the choir, in the balconies, and they were on key as soon as he started taking me down the aisle, began to sing. It was really a dramatic moment. And I came back to the pulpit and I gave my sermon. The church was Sacred Heart, the Catholic Church. And a friend of mine who had a great sense of humor there dubbed that event as the Sacred Heart Attack.
Lewis describes his role at the clinic as a shock absorber. He tries to take in the anger and rage from protesters so patients coming to the clinic can feel safe. When you talk to someone about abortion who feels differently from you, what is the goal of the conversation? I mean, by that I mean, do you want to understand their position, or are you looking to change their mind?
I'm a curious person, and it's built into me through my faith. I was taught early in the Episcopal Church that I didn't have to check my brain at the door. I love that. Okay, that's a start. And being curious. In the baptismal service, we pray that the child that's being baptized has an inquiring and discerning spirit. Woo! So I'm curious. I'm curious about your story. I'm curious about where you come from. I'm interested to know your background. And probably if we find a way to talk, if we can, and there's always has to be a way, then perhaps we might even find some places where we have some common-like experiences. Hey, I've had that happen over and over and over again.
How much of your view about abortion is colored by your faith?
I've had to learn that if I'm going to try and understand anybody else and the prejudices, particularly of my culture here in the United States, that I have to accompany the people. If I'm going to really understand the issues, I have to walk with them in some way. I have to be there. I can't get in their shoes. People say, well, you have to get in someone else's shoes. You can't. But what you can do is walk with people. Around abortion, I had to walk with women. I had to listen to them. I had to weigh that in terms of my heart, my brain, and my faith. And my faith centers around the figure of Jesus. And Jesus, the power of Jesus was that he walked with people. He listened to people. He stood up with people, particularly those who were being oppressed. That's who he moved toward. So in my faith as a Christian, I'm called upon to walk with him. In terms of abortion, walking with women has been the place where I found my faith.
As I said earlier, there are fewer abortions now than any other year since it became legal in 1973. People on either side of the abortion debate agree on some of the reasons. There are now more legal barriers to access to a doctor or a clinic. But the declining number of abortions is also from increased birth control. That includes the morning after contraceptive pill that can be used up to 72 hours after sex. And there are other abortion medications women can take without a doctor or a clinic. Another reason for fewer abortions? Funding restrictions limit abortion access for some women. The Hyde Amendment is one example. It restricts use of federal money for nearly all abortions except certain cases. And many people say it denies access to low-income women. The politics of abortion is about as complicated as it gets. I still wanted to know if it's possible for two people with opposite views on abortion to have a civil conversation. I sat down with two women who are experts. For years, they've been working against each other's interests at the West Virginia State Capitol. But they have a reputation for being open to conversation with the other side.
I'm Margaret Chapman Pomponio, CEO of West Virginia Free Advocates for Reproductive Health, Rights, and Justice.
I'm Karen Cross, Political Director for National Right to Life.
Karen's been in Washington, D.C. for 14 years now. But she started out as a lobbyist for West Virginians for Life. That's when she and Margaret found themselves at the state capitol on opposite sides of the abortion issue.
I got involved in this issue after having had 2 abortions.
Karen says she had an abortion before her senior year in high school. And later, after she was mother to a young daughter, she had her second abortion when she was 23.
My life changed again after that abortion. I began to drink more heavily to try to numb the feelings. And after about 3 years, I started having nightmares, and I decided to start. I just felt like we needed something in Morgantown. This is in Morgantown, West Virginia. And I felt like we needed something for girls and women who were pregnant unexpectedly, unplanned or whatever, in crisis, and that we could offer them help. Whatever their need was, I just wanted to have the community fill that need. And so we started a pregnancy center in 1984 in Morgantown. And in fact, at that very first meeting, they showed a video of abortion, and I remember crying, and everyone else was crying too, but I was crying because I knew I had done that. And I remember thinking I would die if anybody knew what I had done. And at the end of that meeting, I volunteered to help with girls and women and to help set it up and to be the treasurer on the board. And I said, I'll do anything at all to help women and their babies. Just don't ask me to get involved in politics. That kind of changed over time.
Margaret, the CEO of West Virginia Free, says she also became aware of abortion in high school. That's when one of her friends got an abortion. In college, she supported another friend who wanted to end her unintended pregnancy.
Also, at the time, my political consciousness was really peaking. I was learning about the civil rights movement for the first time, and all of these issues around fairness and justice were kind of crashing down on my shoulders. And so I became an activist for social justice and organized Gunnison, Colorado's first pro-choice march and rally with some other students, and went on to study public policy and political science for my graduate work in Bellingham, Washington. I ended up coming back to West Virginia. This organization named West Virginia Free needed a lobbyist. I absolutely had no intentions of being a lobbyist. I didn't know anything about, I remember being at the Capitol and just thinking that I had been thrown into the lion's den. They needed a lobbyist. I was supportive of the issue, and then I just learned the process as I went, which you probably did too, Karen.
I did, absolutely. Yeah. I knew nothing about lobbying. And in fact, when I started, it was about a year after I helped organize the pregnancy center that I took the job at West Virginians for Life. And they had to tell me what a PAC was. I didn't know what a PAC was.
You have both said that, it was trial by fire. You didn't expect to be lobbyists. Margaret, you said you felt like you were thrown into the lion's den. And so I guess I'm wanting to know, when you two engaged each other at the Capitol during legislative sessions, was it contentious? Did you connect with each other in a way where you got strident and angry with one another?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Karen.
Well, first of all, I like Margaret. But I believe that being pro-life means loving people and treating them with respect. That's a part of being pro-life. And so I treat the legislators who don't agree with me on the issue the same. I treat people with respect. I try to, at least. It's not always easy, but I believe that that's what we're supposed to do. So,
what about you, Margaret?
Yeah, I'm finding this really interesting because this is the first time that Karen and I have been asked these kinds of questions, and I'm seeing a lot more commonality, which I understand maybe is the point of the show. But that is what I always say when people ask me, like, what really drives me in this work, and it's a sense of compassion and love and equity. And so, and I like people, and I like Karen. We have had strong disagreements, but we always met them with, I think, mutual respect for each other.
So this is atypical.
Well, I don't know. Politics, I do think that if you care about an issue and you see that someone, even on the opposite side, if they care about an issue and they're respectful, you earn a certain amount of respect for that person. I see that under the Capitol Dome quite a bit, really. But I certainly don't have that kind of cordial relationship with other more, Karen, I would consider you hard line on this issue for
Pretty
sure.
hard line, yeah.
Yeah. But there are other hardline lobbyists on this who don't even want to smile or speak to me. Like if I see Karen and I know she's with someone, Karen loves to take pictures. And if you don't have your camera, I might say, I could snap that for you or whatever,
Right, right.
Karen, let me come back to you, and I'd like to know, how do you define success on the front lines of this abortion issue from your side of this debate?
Well, reducing the numbers of abortions. We'd like to see no need for abortion. In the end, ultimately, we want to protect human lives. Even the incremental legislation that we pass saves lives. It may only save a few lives in the beginning. It accumulates into a number of lives. The Hyde Amendment alone that restricts the federal funding of abortion except to save the life of the mother and in reported cases of rape and incest, that law alone is attributed to saving between 1 and 2 million people, and because they didn't have access to the funding.
I want to get Margaret's response of what would success be on your side of the debate?
Well, I mean, we want to increase access to reproductive health care for all people. We want to level the playing field in terms of economic justice, racial and gender justice. So we've got a lot on our to-do list. But frankly, I mean, we would like to, work on proactive policy instead of constantly getting into these, really political fights where it feels like women's health is just so politicized and really treated as a political football by a lot of people. I think it's important to remember that, now this is before my time, but, women did die trying to desperately control their fertility before Roe became law of the land. We want to take down barriers to access. I know Karen and I are hardcore on the opposite side of the Hyde Amendment. We believe that that's been devastating for working class and poor women.
Earlier, I mentioned the future of legal abortion could ultimately become a state issue. If the U.S. Supreme Court overturns Roe v. Wade, each state would create its own law. And many states have already weighed in. In 2002, West Virginia adopted a woman's right to know law. It requires a 24-hour waiting period and counseling on abortion alternatives. Additionally, abortion is only legal in the state up to 20 weeks. After that, a woman can have an abortion only if her life is in danger. The state also has an unenforced pre-Roe law on the books criminalizing abortion, with an exception to protect the life of a woman. And in 2018, West Virginia voters narrowly approved an amendment to the state's constitution, stating that there is no right to abortion or the funding of abortion in West Virginia. This amendment and the state's pre-Roe law are referred to as trigger laws. More than a dozen states have similar laws that would go into effect to determine the legality of abortion. So, Karen, do you feel if we reverted to a situation where basically abortion was, whether it was legal or not, it was determined from state to state, is that a situation that you'd be comfortable with?
Okay, yeah, well, that's exactly, if Roe is overturned, that's what would happen, is it would revert back to the people and to the states. But, this idea that we're keeping women healthy and safe by offering abortion, I don't believe abortion is healthy for women.
We are right now in the middle of an election season. And while this has been going on, there have been a lot of challenges to abortion, and they're working their way through the court system. How do you think these challenges are going to play out, and what impact do you think they might have on the election? I'll go to you first, Margaret.
In terms of the court issue, it's really hard to say. I mean, there are a number of things that we're waiting to come down that I think will give us more of an indication of what's to come. I have a hard time imagining that Roe would be overturned, but we're preparing for that possibility, and certainly we've been saying for many years on this side of the issue that, and something that Karen's side has understood very well for a long time, and that is that, even if Roe can't be or won't be overturned, it has been incrementally chipped away at year after year after year. And so, the issue of Roe almost has become somewhat immaterial because there are so many barriers that have been erected that have made it challenging to access care.
Okay, and I would like to respond to that. First of all, I don't see the laws that we pass, the pro-life protective laws that we pass as barriers. So instead of barriers, I see it as enabling women to, or protecting them by giving them factual information.
I completely agree. People need factual information.
Yes.
No doubt there.
Yeah, thank you. And then, but anyway, as far as looking at next year, for instance, 2020, and the people, I believe this issue is going to be huge next year. Huge, because there's so much at stake.
I'm wondering, for both of you, do you think that the polarization and just the general antipathy in our society has really heightened this to where we can't have a discussion about this issue that so many Americans care about? Margaret?
Yeah, I do think so. And I think that we are living in such politically turbulent times. And, I have wondered, there'll probably be people who will wonder, well, why did Margaret sit down and talk to Karen Cross? And I just think that we have to talk with each other. It's important for the public to hear deeply held political beliefs that come from different sides. I think we're more likely to find common ground as a society if we do talk to each other and engage. I just think it's really important to find common humanity even if we deeply disagree with each other. And, we've got to be kind to each other. We can still fight like hell, but we've got to be able to engage.
Right.
Karen?
Absolutely. It's interesting to hear and listen to Margaret, because there are things that I've heard that I didn't know before, but we do need to be able to engage and talk respectfully. I think we are having a great conversation.
I have to say that preparing for this interview, I expected that this was going to be more of a tense conversation. I have to confess. And I found this whole conversation to be a breath of fresh air, that in many ways, and there may be people who hear this and they'll say, oh, okay, well here, is kumbaya. It's not necessarily kumbaya. There's still, we can definitely hear the differences. But I hear two women at least looking for some commonality. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
That was Margaret Chapman Pomponio with West Virginia Free and Karen Cross with the National Right to Life. It felt like a good conversation to me. They both seemed sincere, but they were also on their best behavior. The conversation could have taken a turn at any moment, and I later learned that Margaret had concerns about some of the things that Karen said, but didn't want to do battle with her on a show that's about finding common ground. If a Supreme Court decision does hand the issue back to individual states to determine the legality of abortion, I wonder what that will do to our ability to talk to each other at a time when we're already so politically divided. As we head into the 2020 election season, both sides see abortion as a key issue to mobilize voters, as if the presidential election wasn't motivating enough. There's a reason we say abortion can win or lose an election in this country. Because it can. Working on this story has taught me a lot. As a journalist, I often walk into situations flying by the seat of my pants. And a lot of times, that works. People seem to understand I want to hear their story. I want them to tell me their truth. I want to listen. But this one got away from me. When I showed up to the Women's Health Center, I got flustered, and I wasn't sure what to ask. And maybe if I'd done better at that, the protester, Chris McComas, would have talked to me. But he said no. and asked me to go away. And when I asked to talk with the clinic's director, she said no too. She said she wouldn't do an interview if I was going to talk with a guy like Chris McComas. 2 important people for the story said no, right from the get-go. It's one thing to say we want to be able to talk with someone who disagrees with us, but it's really hard work, and especially on a topic as polarizing as abortion. You've got to think things through. It takes courage. You need to listen carefully. And you need to think about how to be in the moment. We also need to face reality that somebody's going to say no. Then we need to be okay with that. You've been listening to Us and Them. Our team for this show is me, Trey Kay, Marisa Helms, and Kate Smith. Special thanks to Inside Appalachia's Eric Douglas for production assistance. Michael Lipton and Tristan Lozow wrote and performed the Us and Them show music. Mark Lerner designed our logo. The wonderful people at PRX and West Virginia Public Broadcasting make Us and Them possible. So do grants from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, the CRC Foundation, and the Daywood Foundation. Us and Them was originally developed with assistance from the mentorship program at AIR, the Association of Independents in Radio. We'll see you next time on Us and Them.
Support for this podcast comes from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.